All right, guys, let me tell you what we are, guys. We are back. That's what we are, okay? We are back, and appreciate it. Slaughterhouse Sports. It's been a couple of days. It's been since the actual day it's been since I've been back on this platform has been Thursday, and I'll tell you why. Because this weekend I went to Indianapolis and I saw the Big Ten championship game. I saw Oregon and I saw Penn State. All right. So Penn State ends up losing to Oregon 37-45. And I'll just be honest, really good experience in Indy. That city's pretty easy to navigate. The stadium itself is a damn cathedral. It's fantastic. You walk in, it's a dome, but you can kind of see everything. It's a great view once you walk in. Very modernized scene, and a little light show. It wasn't too loud. The fans were tremendous, though. The fans were great, but I'd say that it was 8 out of 10 people were Penn State. So 80% of the crowd was Penn State, and also Penn State, their fans are very, very loud in the best way possible. Oregon fans are also really good fans, but in terms of chants, Penn State, and maybe this was because it's a lot. Indy's closer to State College than it is to Eugene, Oregon. So maybe that was the case. I've never been to Autzen, but I'm sure that outdoor environment, I'm sure the home environment really is different. But Penn State kind of does remind you there's a lot of Eagles parallels to Philadelphia that are out there at play. So that's part of what happened yesterday. And it was a huge environment, packed house, Big Ten championship, last game of college football for pretty much the season, the regular season, I guess we could say. I know that this is technically the postseason, but before we get into this crazy playoff, and it didn't disappoint. It was, a shootout, saw tons of big plays. Kenyon Sadiq's hurdle to start the game off was phenomenal. And there's a couple of takeaways, though, that I want to say. There's a couple of takeaways that I want to say from this game. So I'm going to get into how the experience was. Really good experience. I think that these two teams really cared, which is something that you wanted to see, because there was talk, with the Big Ten championship and the extended playoff that some teams wouldn't care because the path for losing, which is what Penn State, actually did, the path in the playoffs might be more of a path that can be navigated easier. So anyway, the thing that stood out to me, guys, watching this game, couple of big takeaways. I'm going to go with the biggest takeaway of this game. With the amount of offense that Oregon had in this game, Oregon scores 45 points. I mean, they get one off of almost a pick six of Drew Allar. But Dillon Gabriel, he threw for about almost 300 yards. He was 22 of 32 passing, 4 touchdown passes, no interceptions. And Tez Johnson, boy, what a game. I don't even know. That's pretty amazing, actually, that they held Evan Stewart without one reception yesterday in Indianapolis. Noah Whittington was great. The offense of Oregon was phenomenal. So I think it was Dillon's best game he's ever played in his career. Watched him at UCF, Oklahoma, the Red River Shootout. That last drive was massive. The Ohio State game, Dillon stepped up in moments, but Dillon had to carry this team because Dan Lanning said it best, the offense had to carry the defense last night. And that is what is worrisome. That is what is worrisome for the Oregon part of this, is that I don't believe Dan Lanning and Tosh Lupoi have been schooled like this maybe since Washington last year. I've watched or monitored pretty much every game of Dan Lanning's career at Oregon, which is 40 games when you combine the bowl games and everything. He's lost several games. The games he had trouble at Washington State, a lot of trouble, needed to be bailed out in year one, by Bo Nix to Bucky Irving, I think, on that on that legendary play to win the game at Washington State. But at Oregon State, second half, massive collapse for Dan Lanning and those guys. And Oregon State and Jonathan Smith just pounded them in Corvallis. Then you look at another championship game last year, Washington. Dillon Johnson was able to have so much success running the football against Dan Lanning. So this time of the year, defensively, they have not been good in the postseason. I mean, Liberty, they played pretty well, but against Drake May in the Holiday Bowl, they were inconsistent, and then they needed a Bo Nix, to Chase Cota kind of play, just like they did against Washington State that year. All right, last year was more smooth sailing for Oregon, but they lost to Washington twice during that season. So what did they go, 12-2 in that season? And no, they went 11-2 in that year, and then this year now they went 13-0. In the regular season, 11-1 last year, and this season 12-0. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So Dillon Gabriel is so clutch. If he goes on to win a national championship, he's actually going to be a better college quarterback. It's almost sacrilegious to say this than Bo Nix. I mean, Bo Nix can make the out-of-structure play better. Bo Nix might have a stronger arm, but Dillon Gabriel, it's just the way he maneuvers the pocket. Like, Dillon Gabriel is just as accurate. And I know that Bo Nix had the highest completion percentage, but Dillon Gabriel in these moments, he needed to be so clutch yesterday. And him, Terrence Ferguson, so many third down conversions. In fact, I'll pull up the exact stats. Right here I have, I have Penn State's offensive stats. So I'll talk about Oregon first. So for Oregon, winning the Big Ten to me is a huge deal. You wonder, I don't think that there could have been tanking going on defensively, but that performance was just such an outlier for this defense with running the ball. I've never seen Oregon gash like that, since we could say Washington. And I've never think that they've given up that many running yards. They gave up in the game yesterday. It's embarrassing what they gave up on the ground. They gave up 124 yards to Katron Allen, and Nick Singleton had 105. So that's like 230 yards between those two guys. Then Drew Allar himself had about another 50 yards. So that's like 280 yards. Bo Prisbilla, that's like 300 yards of rushing. That is absolutely insane. They gave up 37 points to Penn State, and they let Singleton and Allen run wild. And Oregon, they're always about, you can't run the ball in this defense. So the main takeaway is Andy Kotelnicki he's a genius. And if you were rooting against him yesterday, he's an evil genius. He sends, and I mean that in the nicest way possible, he says, I'm going to make, my offensive milkshake where we're going to put it in a blender and we're going to make it seem really complicated, but to our players it seems really easy. And it looked like a circus. It looked like Leopold. It looked a little bit like Kansas City, like where you have constant, it looked like a carousel. It looked like a merry-go-round where the guys were motioning. Oregon guys are so dizzy having, you don't know who's taking the snap. Like, Tyler Warren will literally be looking like at quarterback like he's going to take the snap. You'll have Drew Allar lined up as a slot receiver, then he'll motion back in. He'll always be an empty, and then you'll always have motion on every single play. And that mesh play that they run where Drew Allar will step up into the formation, he'll take the football, he'll go towards the line of scrimmage, and where Drew can, keep or give it. And Drew Allar can either run for 8 yards or they do that handoff, and there's so much momentum because the running back is the running back's literally running with Allar, and the push that they were able to get, their tackles, Oregon was not able to get penetration. Oregon could not figure it out. Oregon was playing slow. Penn State was bringing the physicality to them. Penn State out-schemed them, and Penn State's players beat them in terms of blocking in a way that I've never seen Oregon's guys manhandled on defense like that. I'm not going to say they were tanking, but if they were tanking defensively, that would have been the game because this is a wild result. And I think I don't think it's going to get enough attention because, you have SMU Clemson, you had the epic Georgia-Texas game, and what's Carson Beck's status going forward. I believe that this game, with the stakes that mattered, this could be the closest team that James Franklin has. Other than Trace and that Saquon Barkley team, this is the closest team Penn State might have in like 20 years, in like 25 years, quarter of a century, that can win a national title is this team. Because Drew Allar was flat out phenomenal. I know that he threw that interception late. He really only had that one turnover. That throw, again, that he had to Singleton for that touchdown right in the middle of the field there was perfect. Threw it with perfect touch. The throw he had to prolong the game, so that's where I don't get that upset at the interception. And then they tried to go for two because, you could technically go for two twice, or if you get that 2 point, you can then win it with an extra point. I get the line of thinking there, the call and whatever. And if you kick the extra point, by the way, you could still go for two for the game if you feel like it. And that might have been the move. In a total shootout, going to overtime would have kept prolonging play. Your defense wasn't getting a stop at all. So it was, both teams were running wild in the game. Oregon's yards per carries were pretty damn good as well. I mean, Oregon ran it for about 160, 170 yards. Jordan James, 2 touchdowns, 87 yards on 20 carries. And then Whittington, 15 carries for 82 yards. So when Oregon got up, I want to say it's, 21-7 or 28-10. 28-10 it was in the first half. And then Penn State scored 2 touchdowns. This game was a lot about Penn State. In a positive way. I knew Oregon's offense could be pretty legit. I mean, what you found out is Dillon Gabriel has stones. Dillon Gabriel's just as good of a player at Oregon at this level as Bo Nix. I mean, that performance was totally legendary. He's up there with the great quarterbacks. I mean, Bo did it for 2 years, so I think Dillon might have to get to a national championship. If Dillon gets to a national title, the point is Dillon's only played 1 year, where Herbert, Mariota, and Bo had that second year at Oregon. So Bo had those big moments. Bo had UCLA year 1, Washington State game, the drive in the Holiday Bowl. Bo had the Oregon State revenge game second year. He had the duels against Washington, which were classics. He had the Utah win when his whole body was feeling, not good. And this Oregon team, I mean, this year in the Big Ten Conference, they've had a lot of, pretty marginal. They've had some big wins. And Dillon Gabriel's whole career is like UCF, Oklahoma, and then Oregon. So the 3 teams is also why I think that Bo Nix is kind of held in this power, in this light. It's also because of Bo Nix, the family, Tez being on the team, and really Bo Nix being down and out, where Dillon was, Dillon Gabriel's reputation was really, really solid, coming in to Oregon. So a lot of factors there, but I think Dillon, if you had one game on the line in college, would you take Bo or Dillon Gabriel? I think this offense is better than last year. And it's wild to say that because you had, Bucky, you had Franklin on this offense. Right now, Dillon Gabriel, his escapability, what he did in that game, what he did against Ohio State, the deep ball throwing, the accuracy, the relationship that he has with Terrence Ferguson, Will Stein calling plays for a second year. And by the way, the Will Stein hire is one of the great hires in the history of college football. I mean, this guy wasn't even calling plays for Texas San Antonio. Who in their right mind would have ever found Will Stein but Dan Lanning? I mean, nobody. Everybody else is just going to hire a coordinator with very, very good numbers. They're not going to hire an assistant, not even a head group of 5 offensive coordinator at the Power 5 level. That is the rarest of rare to see that happen. Even Kenny Dillingham was kind of a strange hire because Norvell was calling the plays. So I want to quickly go and just check this out, guys, for a second here. But really, Penn State can win this whole thing. And that was the big takeaway from yesterday, is that Penn State's offense is fantastic. Drew Allar is either going to win a national championship, and this is all if he stays healthy. He's either going to win the championship this year, or he's going to come back and probably be damn near unstoppable. They're going to have to replace Warren. I don't know if the running backs are going to forego their senior seasons, but if they get both running backs back and Drew Allar, with Andy Kotelnicki calling plays and James Franklin, this offense is, Andy Kotelnicki, to me, I think he might be the most brilliant coordinator at any level of football. I mean, I know we can look at Sean Payton and Andy Reid. I know we can look at really established offensive coordinators like Lincoln Riley. I'm just saying, like, he's the new thing. I mean, what he did against Oregon with that mesh play, with bringing in Bo Prisbula, with making this offense, hiding the running back, misdirecting the tight end across the field. And Drew Allar's able to make those throws, and he played really decisively. Mateo Yu, who's, the guys at Oregon, the defensive line, like nobody, that's the thing that scares you if you're an Oregon fan, is no one really made their presence felt in a big way. And you start to look at Oregon's schedule. And other than Ohio State and Will Howard, who is the best quarterback that Oregon has played? All right. So who's the best quarterback that we have, yesterday? All right. So I'm going to right now read you guys the team stats of third down. That's the money down. Here we go. Third down efficiency rate for Oregon and for Penn State. Okay, thanks for bearing with me, guys. All right, here we go. So Oregon, third down, 6 of 13. Penn State, 7 of 13, 2-2. So 9 of 15. Oregon, 8 of 15. Penn State, 523 yards of offense. Running the ball, 297 yards. 6.7 yards a carry. Unbelievable. So Oregon, what quarterbacks have they faced this year in the Big Ten? And I know it's a down year, actually, for maybe quarterback play in college football. But off the top of my head, they faced Luke Altmaier. They faced Davis Warren or whoever, Michigan was starting at quarterback. Wisconsin's quarterback, who's okay. They haven't really faced a gauntlet, okay, in the Big Ten of offense. And that's why this game was scary, because you got great Drew Allar. Like, this game of Penn State, like, I did not see this version against Ohio State at all. Maybe they just play really tight against Ohio State. But for some reason, Ohio State and Penn State, maybe they're very familiar with each other somehow, even though it's a new coordinator. They both kind of took it to Oregon offensively. And Oregon's defense is actually concerning to me. I know you have Mateo. I know that you're going to try to get Birch back, and maybe Birch was in there a little bit last night. You got guys like Savage, and then Reed made that big play at the end. So the back end is pretty good. It's fine. The linebackers are, like, Betcher does make a lot of tackles. Like, Betcher's noticeable out there, on film. He'll go downhill and he'll make plays. Inside, they got a lot of experience, some transfer portal guys. So the interior of the line is good, and Penn State didn't really test Oregon in that way. But Oregon was not winning at all on defense. And you looked at Lanning, and he was befuddled. So a couple of things also from yesterday. One is that Kotelnicki is for real. You do whatever you can to keep him. Drew Allar has a chance to be an elite NFL quarterback, has a chance to play quarterback and do it at an incredibly high level. I mean, he literally has guys draped all over him and could throw 20-yard throws. I mean, his arm talent is fantastic. He played like Jordan Love last night. Like, Love has maybe a little bit more mobility than Allar, but those guys, I'm telling you, are kind of getting like Drew Allar could be a Jordan Love at the next level. That could be the comparison. And Love maybe took more chances at Utah State, but Drew Allar, if he fits in the right situation, if he plays too early, has bad scheme, he's really going to fail. where I look at a guy like maybe Cam Ward and Shador, just more accurate, more sure things, but Drew's ceiling is as high as anybody. Throwing the football, creating, that's what you see. So this Penn State team looks to be really, really dangerous. And with their path of having SMU, now Jennings is an unbelievable quarterback as well. He's going to be one of the best quarterbacks that Penn State's going to see. Rhett Lashley, great offensive mind. So that game isn't going to be that easy. I think SMU will actually be harder than Boise, because if Boise, you kind of know what you're going to get. You're going to try to stop that run game. Both of those, they're not layups. They're just not layups, but Penn State's going to be favored in that path. And then if they gain that confidence, like when they play with house money, like if they face Georgia or even Notre Dame, boy, oh boy, like if it was Notre Dame, Penn State right now, I think Penn State would be a little bit of a favorite. And if you play on an indoor turf, like in a bowl setting, where it's not, the game isn't slowed down and it's not just physicality, like I'm taking Penn State's offense over Oregon or over Notre Dame. So that's what's so stunning. One, give a great shout out to Penn State's fans, but really it's Kotelnicki, Allen, and Singleton. I mean, I know USC, they made some plays in, I think Fleming made some big catches. But really, this is Penn State. This is Tyler Warren. This is their offense. They know who they are right now. And this could be a game, if they go on to win a national championship, that reminds you of like Eli Manning and the Giants in 2007 when they didn't beat New England the last game of this regular season. But like Eli played really well, threw 4 touchdowns, and the Giants were like, okay, we can hang with this football team. This isn't an invincible team. And Oregon looked incredibly just vulnerable. I mean, offensively, they looked fantastic. And offensively, they've put it together. At Madison, Wisconsin was the one game where the offense didn't really shine. But Dillon's had such an efficient year. I think he's going to be a Heisman finalist. He is that good of a quarterback. So I think Dillon's totally capable of winning a championship. This offense is there. They're just going to need Mateo. They're going to need these guys in the back end to play really physical, really aggressive. Like, they're going to have to take a step up. And now Oregon's going to have to play either Ohio State or Tennessee. So their path is going to be a little bit harder. But seeing Dan Lanning very emotional after winning this big game, I guess you kind of forget Dan Lanning's still very young. And this for him, like, he really wanted this, it validated the Ducks joining the Big Ten. He was able to win a big game, and he was very, very emotional, like much more so than I've ever really seen Lanning. Like family members, teary-eyed, emotional. And that's important. That shows you that these guys were invested. For guys like Jeff Bassa and Tez Johnson, the guys from last year's team, Ferguson, it meant a lot too to get over this hump. It's a mental hump, a mental hurdle, and it was fun. It was a heck of a game.